I found myself in need of some 15mm dowels, and I can't buy those around here. I can't make them on the router because I don't have the right bit, and so I used my pencil sharpener method here, and I found myself making stuff that looks like this. So finally I've got my method working again. I thought I'd revisit it. So the first problem is the blanks. I made these 15mm square and then rounded off the corners with a 1/4" bit just to make them closer to what I need. And next problem is I need to turn these somehow, and last time I used this method I just made 1/2" dowels which I could just put in a drill, but these would require a 5/8" chuck, which I don't have any drill that takes these. So I thought about it a bit and I realized I could just ram them into a socket, and that has enough grip for it to work if the method works well, but then I need to spin this with a drill. And I don't actually have a thing that goes from the drill to this. I know they exist, I just don't have one. So then I realized one of these, not sure what they're called, barrel type nuts, fits in here. And I ground the other end square, 3/8 inch, so it fits in the socket. So that means I can spin it with a drill. Next problem is starting this thing. Quite often it would just really catch the chisel and take out a big chunk. And the way to avoid that is to taper the end just a little bit on the belt sander so that it goes into the inner hole. So I've got a slightly bigger hole here and then the 15mm hole behind it. And the tip of my dowel blank needs to fit into that inner hole so that it can't pull up into the chisel. So that's a bad start there. Whoops. I'll have to cut that off. A few more notes on this. This larger entry hole should ideally just barely fit the dowel blank, because that hole essentially keeps the whole dowel centered. Otherwise you might end up carving a perfectly round dowel not out of the middle of the stock, which means it'll have a flat spot in it. And the other thing is I want to make sure that I wasn't getting too tight in the 15mm hole back there. So I actually made that larger by a fraction of a millimeter. When I drilled that, afterwards I went through it at an angle, just holding the drill at an angle so that it carved out of the edges a little bit, because I don't want the dowels to get burnished by this hole. In fact, these end up a little bit rough on the surface and end up sanding all those fuzzies off of there. And I figured that will make for a better glue joint than having a really smooth, shiny, burnished surface from being too tight in this hole here.